Okay, so I'm going to just tell you stories, and you're going to have to see the challenging the stigma bits. I'm going to just tell you about me and my experiences, and let me just do a little disclaimer. Everything that I'm saying is only my opinion, so it's not based on anything that is official league business or anything like that. I grew up, as he said, in a really small town in the United States in Colorado called Durango, Colorado. My family was small, the community was small. We had a very strict religious family, and that was my background. That served to create a very narrow worldview, as you can imagine. Not a lot of diversity when there's not a lot of people around to be diverse. I can only think of one example of a kid when I was in primary school that was a little bit different. And the teachers, this was the 1970s, I know I don't look that old, but I am. And I don't think the teachers actually knew anything about this kid or about his needs or about why he was different. I think it was just deal with this kid. And much like Grace, I was actually, believe it or not, quiet, shy, reserved. I was a good little girl. And so the teacher always put this kid next to me and said, work with Marie. And I was like, oh my God, I have to have this kid with me every time? But we got through it. At recess and lunch breaks, however, nah, he was not part of my squad at all. He was not part of any squad. He was just that kid that sat over there, smelled funny, talked funny, looked funny. Looking back now as an adult, I realized that what was happening was integration. It wasn't inclusion. It wasn't actually educating any of us. The teacher wasn't educated. The kids weren't educated. None of us knew any better at that time. So obviously, hopefully, as a teacher myself, we've moved on from there quite a bit these days. I can only hope. As far as my own personal experience and experiencing exclusion, I feel like right now I'm preaching to the choir. We're all here because we hate exclusion. We want inclusion. We want people involved in whatever activities they want to be involved in. But thinking back over my life, I've experienced exclusion. Everyone in the room has experienced exclusion. My first big memory is when I was teaching in a little school in Fort Worth, Texas. I was the only white teacher in an all-black school. It was all black teachers and students. I was excluded. I was never, ever, ever, ever invited outside of school hours to go do anything social, go do anything fun. In the lunch area, I was never included and invited over to the table. They had their own way, their own customs. However, the kids in that school loved me. They said, Miss, you ain't white, you just bright. And I was like, yes, I'm just bright, woohoo. And we got along great, and I had a great experience in the end at that school. I moved to Australia for a new start. I thought naively, oh, I'm American, everybody loves Americans. I'm gonna have so much fun in Australia. I'm single, still single, and I was going out to pubs thinking, ooh, as soon as they hear my accent, I'm in. Sadly, that's not what happened. I went to my first bar, my first pub, and I was standing there. Handsome guy comes up, starts ordering a drink. I'm like, okay, here we go. Turn on the accent, make sure you pronounce your R's, and started talking to him. His reaction was, oh, you're American. And he walked off and turned his back to me. I was flabbergasted. I was like, what the hell is going on here? You're supposed to love me because I'm American. But no, I was excluded quite often just because of my accent. Probably some other reasons too, but I'm blaming it on the accent. In the shops, I'm a short person. I'm excluded from the top shelf stuff. I have to ask for help. A lot of people feel that. Female, obviously. Females are excluded from lots of things. I took an interest in a typically male-dominated sport, American football, with the helmets and the pads and the bashing people legally. After watching my son play American gridiron, or American football gridiron, you guys call it, I was like, why not? Some of those guys are not any fitter than I am. I'm going to try this. I'm going to give it a go. Even though it's usually only for boys, it was the second year that women had been playing this sport in WA. And I was like, surely there's something I can do and not be fit and just maybe go out there and have fun. I went to my first training session. There was beautiful people on the team that welcomed me, made me feel great. However, after a few trainings, I realized the coaches were pigeonholing me because of my body type. And I was forced to train and play for a position basically you don't need a lot of talent for. You just stand there and get in the way of people who are coming trying to kill you. So I was pigeonholed because I wasn't fast. I'm old. As was said, I was the oldest player in the state at that time. And my body type is not actually, athletic, shall we say. So I felt I didn't have any choice. I didn't have any control over what I was being expected to do. At the club level, I wasn't able to promote the women's side of the sport. And so for the next 2 years, second and third year, I decided to do something about that. I became the women's director last year, and also at a team level, I became the welcome wagon / stalker / person who pressured you into making sure that you came back every week, because my goal is to grow the sport. I introduced initiatives to make sure that all players got to try out for any position that they wanted, regardless of their body type, regardless of their experience. Just do it, just have fun. I started a social media page for the women's team to start bringing out the profiles of these amazing women who are out there taking on a man's sport and kicking some ass. We started at training introduction circles where we would stand before training, we would say our pronouns, we would say any needs that we had. I would say things like, my knees aren't working, so take it easy on me at training today. At Gridiron, it opened up my eyes to lots and lots of new experiences. Coming from such a small town, like I said, no diversity. At Gridiron, I, for the first time in my life, encountered trans and gender diverse players. I made so many mistakes, and still probably do, to be honest, at pronouns and making sure that I was respecting them. But I had to learn from those mistakes, apologize, be an example, and keep moving on. I posted the outdated autism logo on my social media page for the women and got slammed because that was not the right one. I had to apologize, acknowledge that I had done the wrong thing. I didn't realize, sorry, let me repost something that is supposed to be posted. What I've learned from all that is I don't have to agree with everything that I see or everyone that I meet, but I do have to accept, and I do have to love those people, especially if my goal, my end or hidden, not so hidden agenda is to grow my sport. Another amazing experience I had at Gridiron last year is I had a deaf player who showed up, and I was so excited, again, to grow the sport, but also thinking, what is going to be the challenge of a deaf player coming and playing a sport where you're all shouting at each other, you have helmets on your head, what's going to happen? So I welcomed the player. I tried my best to smother them and make sure that they knew that they could do this. You can do this, we'll do whatever you need. I observed what was needed, and like you pointed out, I asked, what do you need? How can we make this accessible for you, this sport? So we met, and we actually created a world-famous video on sign language for football. It was not real Auslan. It was partly Auslan and partly homemade signs, but we started using those at training. The coaches had to learn them. That was the biggest mission. The team practiced those every training session, whether the player was there or not, because we wanted it to be natural and to feel safe for them. We even made a video to send to an American female football team that also had a deaf player that then said, wow, thanks. That's really helpful for us. We're going to use those. The unexpected outcomes of doing that were that some of the players that were dyslexic, that we didn't even know were dyslexic, came up and said, you know what? We finally understand what we're supposed to do because we're watching the signs and we're doing the signs. And we've been playing for 2 years. So that was a wonderful, unexpected outcome that wouldn't have happened otherwise. We also had the league officials, you know, the zebras and the white and black stripes that call all the fouls and all that. They figured out that this player needed adjustments made, and they immediately jumped to change things and to make it more inclusive for that player, which then will transfer on to the future. At the league level, I will always and forever advocate for trans and gender diverse players to play wherever they want. We're not the Olympics. We can allow people to play wherever they feel best, that they fit. The women's team may be a place that they choose to start out and grow in. They can move when they're ready. And I want to help the different clubs within the league develop an awareness of what their players and community need, and then act upon that. I guess if I had to give advice, I don't like giving advice, but if I had to give advice, I would say be a voice and be an advocate. Not everyone is as belligerent and mouthy as I am. Stand up, remind whoever you're talking to about what is needed. Rephrase or repeat with corrections if need be. Research, learn about the needs of people around you, ask them, respond to what they need. Don't just say, oh, we're doing this, and put it on a list of, this is our inclusivity policy. You actually have to follow through and do it. And as you pointed out, the bottom line is just respect people. We've all seen that picture, that little caricature of people standing at a wall with all different abilities and disabilities and trying to see the event on the other side. Have you all seen that cartoon? And what it is supposed to be promoting is we need to provide a way for those people to have access to whatever's going on the other side of the wall. What I want is no wall. I don't want any barriers, nothing in the way. Just come and play. Just come and do whatever you want to do. Inclusion doesn't hurt anyone, but exclusion is painful. Thanks.